Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Casey Catch Up. Had a really good chat with Kahi. I got him on as a representative of the Voyager foilers and that crew that's doing these prone downwind runs on the South Shore of Oahu. It was really cool to get an insight into what it is they're doing and how they're pushing the sport and how they're teaching people to do it as well, which is what I really love. They've got a solid crew of guys, that are all sending it downwind on their prone board. Figured out how their setup is and their plans to progress and potentially do Molokai to Oahu. I think is their plans. Some really good insights on reading the swells and the bumps. We had a look at some of the runs they're doing and some of the footage that they've managed to get. But all in all, it was a really cool chat with Kahi, and I love his attitude. If you are looking at learning to downwind foil, be sure to check out my website, caseyoz.com. Have a look at the Coach Casey Club. It's an online course where you can step-by-step guide to learn to downwind foil. We're stoked to have you on. And if you're enjoying these podcasts, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow my Spotify channel. So thanks for tuning in and enjoy the chat. Hey guys, welcome to the Casey Catch Up. We've got Kahi, one of the Voyagers, on, and I'm super stoked to chat to him about all things downwind foiling and really tap into his knowledge of downwinding the South Shore, like literally on a prone foil board, which I think is it's risky, but it's probably the ultimate. So yeah, Kahi, give us a bit of a background about yourself and what got you into downwinding.
Okay, well, first off, thanks for letting me be on the podcast. I'm stoked to be here representing the Voyager crew. Like I was telling you earlier, I'm not so sure they'd be stoked on me representing them. I'm one of those fringe 18 guys that's always pushing the limit on whether he's going to still be on it or get demoted down to the B team. But yeah, so I got into downwind foiling just simply for the progression that happens as a result of falling in love with the ocean. It's like more or less the penultimate of ocean athleticism, I would say, is being able to prone downwind for long distances unassisted. So, as a young kid, I boogie boarded in Kailua, grew up, started surfing the base, and then picked up a shortboard when I was around 18, and then just didn't stop until I found fishes and alayas, and I rode those extensively. I rode alayas like nonstop for about 5 years, and really enjoyed that feeling. And I think that feeling was actually quite similar to the speed and the connection that you get with foiling. So I don't know, I always kept surfing, shortboarding, etc. And then I fell in love with foiling. I started from the very beginning, split a foil with a buddy of mine. And from there just progressed, man. Like we just started with like the Kai foil, then the Cloud 9 foil, and then in Tavarua, my buddy Dylan let me try it, but warned me that once I tried it, I'd want to buy one. So that was the Armstrong. Rode the Armstrong and bought it on the spot out there. Came back home to Hawaii, and I rode Armstrong loyally for a long time, probably like 2 years. But I couldn't do these downwinders. I just was winging, just getting huge air and catching waves. I was having a great time. But my best friend, like Scotty, the wizard, was like, what are you doing? Come and join us. Like, we're having a good time. There's like 5 of them that were doing it at the time. And I was like, why don't you guys join me? And so there's like this trade-off. Like they would come and try to wing with me, and then I would go with them to try to downwind. And they sucked at winging. I sucked at downwinding. And then one day they let me try a lift, and it clicked, and boom, I was there. Like it was on. Like the lift 200 high aspect, or I think it was the 170, and it clicked. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And it's just been a roller coaster since then. I got on the Takuma, and that even took me to the next level. And I'm happily riding the Takuma 1210 and the 980 for downwinding. And I'm just like, I don't know. There's nothing else I'd rather do, as long as there weren't waves, than downwinding in the ocean. So it's the ultimate.
Yeah, no, that's an epic story. Like, especially the fact that you were riding an Alea for 5 years, which to me really stuck out. That's you were saying very similar, but the way I see it, it's almost polar opposites. You know, Alea's no fins, and then you've gone to a foil board, which is like the world's biggest fin. So, but like you say, like the speed and it's like the lack of drag feeling is what stands out to me. And
Yeah,
I think what
it's that, but then it's also the positioning of where you sit in the lineup. Where you would catch a wave with an Elia is very similar to where you would catch it with a foil. And I found myself with the same types of waves. Not necessarily like super slopey and shitty waves, but like really high performance, somewhat slopey waves. And like I learned to read the wave, and the way that you would read it for an Elia is the same way you would read it for a foil.
Unreal. Yeah, that's a really good insight, because I haven't really ridden an LAS successfully anyway. But the foil, I spent a lot of time on, and that's good to know. Maybe I could cross over one day. But
Definitely.
yeah, the reason I really wanted to get you on here, and like as I said, as a representative of the Voyagers, is a lot of people, including myself, have been following this. Like, looks like a group of 30 at times. You guys are just sending it downwind. And
Yeah.
I know from paddling over there that it's an epic spot for it. You've got a bunch of like outer reefs, and the winds kind of cross off where you start, and then it goes to like a perfect sort of downwind rollers. Even on a unlimited race board, it literally feels like you're surfing those big swells past Diamond Head. It's probably one of the best spots in the world for it. But yeah, like a lot of people have been chatting to me. I was chatting to Dave Kalama last week, and he's like, "Oh, I was over in Oahu. I should have tried to catch up with the Voyagers." We want to know what it is exactly that you guys are doing. So, I guess to start off with, tell us about your first run, and maybe progress us through. Like, is there a beginner's run you start with, then like an intermediate, and then an advanced, or is it just like straight into the deep end?
Yeah, I think that the thing that we didn't realize was that this gold mine was right at our front door. The run from Caicos to Tongs is arguably the best and easiest run on the island. And we were like surfing shitty Diamond Head and it's sloppy, trying to foil out there when we could have been downwinding these last couple of years. But at the same time, equipment wasn't there yet. Our own skill level wasn't there yet. So it's kind of like happened like evolution in a sense. And this run that we're talking about, the Caicos Psychos, the group of us that go on a regular, it was really just like 6 or 7 of us. And it's been growing. There's different sets. There's the A team, B team, and a C team. So there's a the B team. When they get good enough, then they get to join the A team, and then C team, you make your way up to the B team. And if you start kooking it like crazy on the E team, you get demoted down to the B team. So you can also get put down onto the B team if you get caught too many times out wing dinging, or longboarding or whatnot. So you'll see a lot of our posts, like if we're posting something of not downwinding, there'll be a hashtag under review. That's like one of our sayings. You're under review all the time. Nobody's actually been demoted, but we love to rag on each other.
Yeah.
But it's a really close crew of guys. I wish there were more females involved. I hope eventually, and like we're working on curating more female participation. But right now, it's just a really tight knit group of guys. And it's cool because we have some of the world's best surfers in our crew, and they're just like us, just full froth, no egos. And I think what brings us together is like, this is the hardest thing to do, like in my mind, in the world, when it comes to like being out in the ocean unpowered and trying to harness the ocean's energy. So we've all struggled so hard to get to this point that it's like you've reached the top of the mountain and you're there with your boys and you're just having a party. So, at the end of our runs, the best days are epic nuking wind days. And then at the end, we've got Keikoa coming through with his beer sponsor, hooking us up with all the beers and whatever else might show up. So it's an amazing experience. The run itself, although it is like the best run, it's also the best run to learn on. because there's so many waves along the way that if you were to fall, you could paddle in maybe a minute, 5 minutes, depends on how far out you go, right? And you could catch another one. There's only one section between the end of the lighthouse at this place called Super Gaze and Sleepy Hollows that there's no waves. And if you get stuck there, then you got to either paddle down the beach or back to the waves. But it's not that bad. Like after the experiences I've had way out in the bay, that's nothing. But yeah, it's the ultimate spot. Like when you're learning, you start at Kaiko's, and then if you make it to Browns, great. The next day, you try to make it a little further. You just keep making it further and further and further. And I think it helps you mentally to keep having that progress versus going somewhere where you just continually fail, right? Like this place, you have like a landmark, you have a break. You're like, okay, I'm making it further and further and further. I'm gonna get this. And then eventually it clicks. Like there are, I would say of all the people that give it a go, I'd say the vast majority, if they stick with it, actually make it. And we have guys that are like 60 years old doing it now. So it's awesome to see that it's like, it's not just relegated to like the younger guys or the middle age guys like me, like even like the older guys are cracking the code.
Sounds like the ultimate training ground. And like you said, that's what I always wondered is that, you know, if you're starting in one spot and then having to go out to sea and there's no waves to chip in onto, you know, from there until the finish, and I was like, man, these guys are all either super talented or the conditions are epic for it. And sounds like a bit of both, to be honest. Like you still have to progress. I know it's not easy. I've done a couple like prone foil downwinds, and here in Sydney, it's not really conducive to it because we have all these like deep bays and then big headlands. Whereas you guys have like these outer reefs, and like I know the winds are super good there too. So chipping in, going out to sea, and I assume that the more confident you get, that the further out you guys go as well. Because you doing the Hawaii Kai one as well, sounds like you know the bumps are generally better further out, but the further out you go, if you fall off, the further you've got to paddle in. So I love that you've got like, you know, you got like tiers, you know, you go from Kaiko's to Browns and then, you know, you keep going further down, and that's, so cool.
The hardest part is the Jenga game of trying to put all the foils in the back of people's trucks or out the sides of windows. We have like this one technique where you sit in a car and you thread your nose of your board through the window, and then you hold onto it with the foil hanging out the side. It's called the yawn over method. And like we'll be going down, like everybody's got their boards out, boards on the roof, somebody's in the trunk. Like we do whatever it takes to get the crew back up on top. We hitchhike. Like it's really fun, and it gets creative, but it gets a little scary when you've got a truck bed full of 13 foils and 13 foilers. Like it's a little sketchy.
Yeah, only in Hawaii, right? That it wouldn't happen anywhere else. It's so good. I love it. I'm so
something to keep in mind when like you got to figure out how to transport everybody up there, and you're gonna want to do more than one run. So like we stagger cars, right? Like we get all the cars ready so that when we get in, we can get the car ready, loaded up, and get going again. Because the run's only like 10 to 12 minutes long. Like you can knock out like 3 or 4, and that's a great day. If you do one, it's kind of a waste. Some animals like Veeks will try to do 6 or 7 in a day, but he also doesn't have kids, or I don't even know if he has a job. But you know, some of us have that freedom. But like us that have to be home at a certain hour or get to work, like 3 runs, that's perfect. 4, that's gravy.
Actually, I might just I've got Google Maps up, and I want to, for those that are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. For those listening, you'll have to have a look on the YouTube channel. But where exactly can you kind of direct me? Where?
So the headland to towards Kahala Avenue. Right there, right where you're there. There's an access point where we jump off the rocks there. And like the jump off is gnarly itself. Some days it can be so heavy that you actually can't jump off there.
Yeah.
Go a little bit to your left. You see the black line that goes through that one property. That'll be there's the beach access.
Yeah.
No. To your a little bit more towards the point.
So like.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
So that's the access. You park up on top, and then you walk through that access, and then you walk just a little bit to the left, and there's one rock that you jump off of, but the ocean, you can see from the image, breaks right there. So you got to time it perfectly, keep your board upside down, and you can see it in the tutorial, like there's rocks everywhere. And you jump off there, you catch a wave right over there, and then you just head left. You just go left, and you keep going left.
Yeah. So where's the first, I guess, I think you mentioned Browns. Where's the beginner's run, so to speak? What's the first one you start?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say anything's a run unless you make it to Diamond Head, really. But if you were to make it to Cromwell's Beach, you see to the left, straight out from there is Browns. But there's a big channel. It would be keep coming out, pull that thing out.
Yeah.
Into that dark blue. Yeah, right there.
Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah.
If you make it that far, that's a great start. That's you made it that far. You made it to one of the bigger channels that you have to cross. And then from there's waves every 100 meters.
Yeah.
So every 100 meters,
all this little white
there's another wave.
Yeah.
Yeah. You keep going, and then there's this at Diamond Head Beach Park. A lot of guys, they make it there their first time. They're stoked, or not first time, but first couple tries, and they come in there and they walk back or whatever. But you could arguably just keep going. I never stopped there. I would just, when I was learning, if I fell at Browns, I would get up and keep going. I would just keep going until you make it to Tongs. Yeah. So the gap of no waves, it's the area where you where the whitewash ends.
Is it?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Right where you are, or it kind of ends the one prior, and all the way to this, where the furthest sand is, right over here. Yeah, where you're at. So that whole zone's kind of it's pretty sketch, but not really. You can get a wave, and you're still not that far out at sea. The boys that are super comfortable, there's a buoy, so a channel marker, a big ass red buoy. I'm not sure, there's this really cool photo of Jack and Scotty standing on top of this buoy out there. You go around it. That's a fun little.
So is that literally just further out? So you literally just sort of.
Yeah, it's way out. Go way further out. Way further out. It's in the dark purple.
Yeah.
That'll add a bit of, it's more way out there. So that's a fun little exercise to do. But that if you fall out there, you're gonna have about a half an hour paddle back to the lineup through some, what we call the deep purple. That's the spooky water. Yeah. So then you come in at Tongs, or you can come in at Suicides as well. And then if you've got really good east winds, you can ride it all the way. We can keep going all the way to Kaimana's. So that's a special run, because you get to go all the way to this natatorium. See that pool looking thing?
Yeah. That's where we basically finish out. When I've run from Hawaii Kai, and we finish it. Yeah, exactly here.
Yeah. So you can come in all the way over there. So that adds a little bit of extra gravy to the run. Yeah. Granted, your lines aren't representative of the run. It's a zigzag, and it's a little bit further out. But that's the basic either Tongs or Kaimana's run. You go to Tongs on a northeast, and if it's straight east, you can take it all the way to Kaimana. Or if there's swell, if you've got south swell, you can take it all the way to Kaimana.
Yeah, epic. Yeah, so that's that. I guess this section that you're talking, where you're starting at Kaiko's and through to Kaimana, that's the section on the stand up that I've always loved. It's literally, the swells really jack up there, and it's a sweet section. And as you said, the fact that there's those outside reefs for most of the way, I definitely not the whole way. It adds that sort of extra bit of safety.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely know that, especially if you're going out, like you say, into the deep purple, like that's, you know, risk reward, right? It's what makes it so much fun. That the risk is enjoyable, but it's all good until you come down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, it's looking like Caicos to Tongs is like 2.5, 3 kilometers. So it'd be like 1.5, 2 miles, and then
It's usually on our watches, it's usually about 2.1 miles to
okay,
Tongs and then 2.5 miles to Kamana.
yeah, okay, yeah. So that's a perfect, I guess, like a perfect starting point. But like I'm teaching guys here to downwind foil on their sups, and a couple of guys just like they send it. They get like 10Ks for their first one, which is like
Nice.
7 miles, and it's like, did you get up? They're like, oh yeah, once or twice, and it's like, weren't you tired? Like it's a long way to paddle even on a
Yeah.
5-foot board, you know. So
Yeah.
definitely taking that progression. You know, I love that you've got those like little sort of exit points, and you can literally just walk back to the start if you come down, or just sort of keep chipping in and going down the
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it really makes me think, I guess, the beaches we have here, you know, the longest beaches are 3.5 kilometers maybe. And when we have like a northeast breeze, which we get here in Sydney, we get like a northeast sea breeze and then a southerly, like more of a frontal system, like it's like a storm. The northeasters are the best for downwinding. And there is one spot I've done a downwind foil, prone foil before, and it's, you start at North Narrabeen, where the WSL event was on earlier this year. You chip in at the point, and then you literally just go all the way down the coast. It's a beach break the whole way through. So worst case, you just paddle onto the beach and get going again. So maybe, yeah, that definitely I should get there's a local crew here that really want to learn to do it. And
Nice.
you know, I want something like you guys are doing. It looks so much fun, you know, having all the crew and just sort of packing the car up and let's go, we're getting up. Jenga stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, from that image or that map that you're showing, like once we had that run dialed, then we just simply started taking it further and further and further until we got to the Holy Grail.
I guess show me where you. Yeah,
Yeah.
You're going further east now.
So if you keep going there, keep going that way. So we started to take it from further, going from Kahala. So from that like big ass golf course, like in front of there.
Oh yeah.
And then from the golf course, once we had that dialed, we went to that next peninsula. This is Wailupe Peninsula.
Yeah.
And then we started going from the outer reef out there. So you had to paddle out pretty far.
Yeah.
But then you could get a wave from there. So go all the way to the end. So it's like at the end of the peninsula in the corner, we would paddle out from there. No, like not that peninsula, this peninsula. Yeah, where you're right there.
Yeah.
So we go from there. And then eventually we took it all the way to what they call China Walls. I like to call it Kahi Hoa, but everybody knows it as China Walls. So we would go from China Walls. So at the moment, the longest prone send has been from China Walls. But Jack and Emil and Nick have taken it from with their stand-up sups all the way from Sandy Beach around the corner. So that would be right around that 72 mark. So they're taking it with the downwind sups from there. And that's why I just got me a downwind sup so I could do that as well.
Oh, epic. Yeah.
Like ideally I want to be comfortable enough to take it without a paddle and just downwind without it. But there is that point of risk there. It's just not worth it. And I think the run from Kahi Hoa, China Walls to Tongs unassisted on a prone foil is right there at, is it actually really worth it? Lots of people have tried it. Only 4 people have made it unassisted on prone foil so far. So like nobody's made it since March. And it's not because people can't do it. because it's not necessarily the most physically challenging thing to do. It's because it's the most mentally challenging thing to do.
Oh, I totally hear what you're saying. There's like, it's the risk thing. As I said before, it's risk reward. And starting out at China Wall, so I want to call it what you're calling it, Kahi
Hoa.
When you're starting there, I guess I'm going to go back to the map again. There's literally, I'm going to actually measure it, see how far out it actually is. But it's at least a kilometer offshore, like minimum.
You're already starting really far out.
Yes,
that's what allows you to get to the wind line.
2 kilometers out, like before you even get going, and then you're literally going straight out, and like you don't really get much closer. So if you're following a straight line, it's right on that mile sort of mark out to sea. It's a long paddle in or back upwind or downwind, and totally understand why you want to, I guess, start the stand up. And that's what I always thought when I saw you guys doing it. I thought, man, they must be doing short runs because they must be going too far out, because for me on this run, I know from a stand up that it's a long way out. Like, it's even for a normal sort of downwind run, it feels like you're a long way out to sea, and there is that reef, but it's not easy to just sort of paddle back in. And it's only 4 guys that made it.
Yeah. So far, well, I'll give Simeon a 4.5, or more, maybe more, but like a 4 and like 15/16. Like when you fall right before the finish line. Poor guy fell. Like, you almost made it. But
so right at the end, but it didn't matter as much.
Yeah, well, he fell at I think he fell at Black Point. So he made the journey, like the long journey, the scary journey. He made that, and that's huge, because that's the big mind fuck is the distance between Kahi Hoa and Black Point. Like, your brain is just like, I don't know, you go into this like meditative, like Zen, like state where nothing distracts you, and nothing can distract you. Like, you are just taking in all the variables that you see in front of you, and you feel, and you start making sense of that chaos, and you have to be on point, because that run's like 40 minutes long. Like, you have to make it. But I think our sport is like in Hawaii, or excuse me, on Oahu, I guess on all the islands, it's been spearheaded by the young kids, so like they don't have as much fear. So like Jack and Emil and Nick, they're doing this stuff, like Emil's juggling while he's doing these runs, and like we're the older guys being like, uncle can do that, and so we're chasing the kids instead of being the I guess the guys that they emulate. It's like, it's this weird thing where we're emulating the younger kids right now. So it's a really fun time to be in this sport, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome following along. And actually, one of the first runs I ever did downwind was over on Maui, and I went from it was the Maliko run, but just a part of it. We started at Kuau Point, and we're going down to Sugar Cove, which is about, I want to say it's like 4 miles, 6 or 7 kilometers, and I with the Jeffrey and Finn Spencer, who are just freaks. And I didn't have a stand-up foil board at this point, and I had the original Go Foil Maliko, so like the original blue one, the one bigger than I guess the Eva replaced. And I got going sweet, and it's that like risk thing. I came down and then had to paddle like to an outer reef, and I got going from there, and it was like the Spencer boys, they were like in like probably 30 minutes before me, and I finally got one. I went all the way from an outer reef all the way into Sugar Cove. It was probably like it felt like 10 kilometers, but it was probably like 2 miles, like 3 or 4 k's, all the way on the inside reef, and it was the best. Like, it was the first downwind run I'd really done, but the risk and the fact that I had to paddle to wait for a chip in and all that, it really put me off it. And the fact that I can stand up paddle and I could paddle up onto the foil, I just never really re-explored that sort of prone foiling discipline, I guess. But I got a mate who lives in Perth as well, and he one of the sharkiest places in Australia, and he's Foil Perth. He's done a couple from, you know, long, sort of similar to, you know, Sandy's around to Tongs, and he's done a couple, and you have to be a fair way out there in Perth. They're doing long downwind runs, and it's sketchy. But I guess, like you said, like you mentioned, like unassisted, and that unassisted, I guess when you have a jet ski there, it's kind of, you know, it's cruisy. If you fall down, doesn't matter. But I've seen like Jack, like doing like boogie board foiling and freaking back up and sitting down, and the boys are juggling, and there's a bit of confidence there. They're not going to come down, obviously.
They're fucking around like that on the Kaiko's run. No, you're not going to be doing that so much on a prone from Kawaihoa. It's just
that makes sense.
we're not there yet. We're not there yet. And like, wow. we had no subs background. At least most of the Voyager crew, like being from Hawaii, like we didn't sup. We were short boarders. Like almost all of us we have shortboarding background. So the idea of supping was not something that was very palatable. But like now it's like we want to do these extreme voyages. Like I want to go from Molokai. I want to go between islands and whatnot. And you're not going to do that with a prone. It's like, obviously it's physically possible. But I'm a realist. Like I can't, like, give me a paddle so I can get back up. I just got to figure it out now.
Yeah. And that's what I've found is that with the paddle, you can go much further distances, and you can still stuff up. You know, even if you come down, it's like, it's not like, shit, I've got to paddle in like 3Ks. It's like, nah, I'll just wait for the next bump and I'll paddle up onto it. And that's, you know, that's like, okay, that's cool. But yeah, actually, like you're saying, like the risk when you're out to sea on a prone board and you could come down, it's debilitating. Like I've done about 75 kilometers nonstop with my SUP foil board, and like not even in easy conditions, but because I'm on a SUP, there isn't that risk. I'm not scared of falling. On a prone board, even doing like 3 or 4 kilometers, I'm like sketched out. I'm like, if I come down here, it's like, it's going to be a long paddle in. It's going to be like 10 minutes just sort of grinding. So it's
10 minutes. That's a short paddle.
Yeah, short. But like, I don't get too far out if I'm not on my stand up.
Man, like when you start, like I tell people, like downwinding is like 90% in your head. Like people like say, I can't do it. Yeah, you can't then. You know, if you're like, I can't do it. No, you're never gonna do it then.
Yeah,
like it's all in your head. Tell yourself you can do it, and you can do it. And it's like when you're doing these long runs, when you start thinking you're gonna fall, you're gonna fall. It's just it's inevitable. It's crazy. So like the falling side of things, like I want the people listening to understand how scary it is to do it unassisted. Like a couple of us have attempted and fallen. I personally fell on my first time trying it. Why I did it again, I think I'm just stubborn. I was like, I almost made it. I know why I made a mistake. I can do this. And I did it. And I haven't done it since. Right? So, like,
so I'm just pulling this is your successful run, is it not? The 9 miles. Yeah. So, this is the one
if you were to cut that by about a sixth, kind of where the dark purple water and the lighter color kind of like right there, now a little bit further back, I fell there on an attempt.
That's like that's the furthest out you are, basically. That's as far from anywhere. And it was really scary. Like I'm not sure if you guys rock the Apple Watches, but we all wear, not all of us, but like we almost all rock the Apple Watches with cell, so that when we get into sketchy situations, we can like call for help. In this situation, I was at home working, and Jack and Nick called me and said, we're doing a run, it's firing, let's go. I was like, let's go. My watch wasn't charged up. I had like
25%. I was like, fuck it, let's go. I fell. I was able to make one call to let somebody know that I fell. And then I started paddling for the shore. After 20 minutes of paddling, it appeared that I wasn't making any headway.
I was going to say,
you know how like,
and the wind and everything.
Yeah, you're paddling against the wind. The houses aren't getting any bigger. The palm trees aren't getting any bigger. The lineup that you put out to your side doesn't seem like it's changing. And I was like, I think I'm stuck in a current, like I'm not going anywhere. So I gave myself another like 20 minutes of paddling to make sure that I wasn't making progress. And I was. And after about an hour and 20 minutes, I made it back to a break. And I caught a wave at Picos and then eventually made it. So I didn't come in. I got back up and kept going.
Back on the horse.
But like you have to go into it knowing that you might have to do this paddle, but you don't put it in the front of your brain. You stick it in the back, and you have that confidence that you can make that paddle. And it's a scary paddle. Like you as soon as you fall out there, you're playing that numbers game. Like your buddy in Perth, like that's way gnarlier than what we do. Like they got way more sharks, but like in this bay, we see tigers all the time. Like I've been visited by tigers out in this zone before. So I was sketched for sure. My Apple Watch was dead. Like it was one of the scariest adventures of my life. But like once I did that, I'm like, fuck, I'm no problem. Give me another hour paddle. That was fine. I'm just gonna charge up my watch better next time.
Yeah, that's I don't have an Apple Watch, but I always bring my phone in a waterproof case because exactly what you're saying. If something goes wrong, the wind changes, something, you just need to cover all bases. And there's no doubt, I always say to people, if you want to attempt any of this stuff, you need at least a phone at the very least, and next is like a land crew that are kind of keeping an eye out for you. Because
and that like we got a tight crew. Like Veeks one time disappeared, and like he had us, like he didn't know it, but like we were all on different points along the, like he sent one from Hawaii and fell, and like we were all on different points of the freeway, like trying to find him, and then just keeping in touch with each other. He got picked up by Diamond Head. But yeah, you definitely have to, that communication plan is super important, and like technology has allowed this sport to be a lot safer.
Even still here in Sydney, lots of headlands, when people see someone out to sea, they'll call a helicopter or the police or something. And I've had multiple occasions where I've sort of gone and literally had a helicopter turn up just as I finish, or police say, "Was that you out there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it was all good. I was never in trouble." And it's like, just people watching. It's great that people are watching, but I now log on to it's called a marine rescue app, and you literally just plot your journey, and you say you're going from here to here. It's going to take approximately an hour or 2 hours, whatever it is, and you log on, log off, so people know that if you're spotted out there, they're not going to call a helicopter. Oh no, it's this crazy dude doing a downwind foil. He's sweet.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we should get something like that here.
Yeah, it's it just covers, as you said, covering your bases. Land crew, phone, and letting, I guess, authorities know that you're out there doing this for fun. You're not in trouble.
Yeah. Cool.
Actually, just last weekend I was out wing foiling, like sort of surfing in the waves. I had a wave break on me, and I broke the leash on my wing, and the wind was a little bit offshore, and the wing was gone. So I was just with my board. Kind of similar story to you. I was on my 4 foot foil board, and I'm trying to chase my wing out to sea. Decided it was too far gone. Started paddling in. That's probably the longest paddle I've had. Actually, that was a good 30-40 minutes. And
oh god,
it's not fun, is it?
Yeah, and then your board's all wide, so you're like this.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big of a thing, like who designed this? For winging, it's sweet, but for paddling it, not so much. Yeah. So I guess tell me about. I'm really interested in this part because you've decided to get a stand-up paddleboard. Is that it behind you, or is that a Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my new toy. It hasn't even touched the water yet. I just got it
Oh.
yesterday.
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
Pretty
I
excited.
guess how much stand-up paddling had you done, and what's your game plan?
Yeah. So luckily, like when we now there's people that have done it, so I can ask. But like every other aspect of foiling, there was never anybody that we could rely on to learn, because we were always at the forefront of each new like technique.
Mm.
In this case, I get to look to, like, I called Eric Sturman, Nick Capule, Jack Ho, and got there. And I'm gonna ask you too, eventually, like, give me some advice, man. I'm a noob.
Yeah.
So like the board design, that was really challenging, because these things aren't cheap. Making sure that I got everything that I needed in it, volume wise and whatnot. I did attempt a run from Kawaihoa to Tongs with my friend Sup, with Nick Sup one time. And I was able to get it up for about 10 seconds. And that was it for the entire journey. So I paddled the entire way. And like like being from Hawaii, we all know how to paddle. I guess it's slightly stereotypical, but like we know how to paddle, and we know proper technique. So that part's okay. But with the Sup, like these ones, like you're not standing side by side, so you're like in your surf stance almost the entire time. And for me, it was really easy. I'm regular footed, so it's really easy for me to go with like my left hand in the lower one and right hand on the top, so going on this side. But it was really hard to go this way.
Yeah.
So I more or less paddled on one side the whole way.
Yeah.
And that was my first intro to Sup foiling. Yeah. And so now, like, what's that?
You decided to do the long one.
I think I was overconfident.
Yeah.
That tends to happen often. Yeah. And then Mother Nature slaps me. He's like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
So like now everybody, like the boys are like, hey, like go into the surf and practice there for a little bit. And then I'm like, I don't want anybody to see me Sup foiling anywhere. No disrespect. I just so I got some little secret spots around here that I'm gonna go practice Sup foiling, and just get that feeling. And then hopefully this weekend send one and go for it.
Yeah, epic. I can't wait to I'll have to touch base and see how you go, but like what your friends are saying is it's the perfect advice. You need to start in, like, same when you're prone fall, you don't just go all of a sudden, gotta go send it. You got to learn to, and I'm sure it's the same. Prone, you were starting to link waves, and as soon as you can link 2 or 3, I say 3 waves, and you're pretty much ready to downwind, because people get afraid of downwind foil because it's like, oh, you're out there and you got to link all these bumps. Looks like you're pumping the whole time. And I'm not sure about you, but for me, downwind foiling is easier than pumping between waves. Like when you're surfing, you pull off one wave and there is zero energy in between one wave and the next. Whereas when you're out to sea downwind and you got the wind at your back, there's all these little tiny chops everywhere. There's swells and there's all this energy. Like if you can link 3 waves in the surf, you're more than ready to downwind and link waves out to sea, in my opinion. But it's a confidence thing for sure.
I would agree. And then it's just about reps and learning what the ocean is going to do, and trusting the ocean. Like people, like the last thing you want to do is pump when you're downwinding. It's like, don't pump. Like that's you only pump when you have to. Pump as little as possible.
Yeah, you make a mistake, I got to do a couple little pumps, and then you glide again. And it's just when conditions are good, if you're pumping, you're doing something wrong. I guess a gear question for the what equipment are you using downwind on your prone, and are you using the same stuff for your Sup?
Yeah, so I use the Takuma 1210 usually with a cane 13-inch stab. I use the carbon setup, so I'm double shimmed on the base plate, but no shim on the tail. I ride it almost all the way forward, but not quite all the way forward. And that's the usual go-to. But when it's nuking, or if the period's real short, then I'll jump to the 980. The 980 is so much more whippier. It's just like a super long wave. You're just surfing the whole way.
Yeah.
But that one section between Lighthouse and Sleepy Hollows it gets a little trickier because you got to do some pumping. So you have a more chance of falling, but you have a lot more fun. That being said, like the 1210's pretty amazing once you figure it out. And I'm gonna be rocking the start with a 1210 on this thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I haven't even seen one of the Kajira 1210s or any of the new ones over here in Australia. I'm not sure why, but just here there just aren't any. They look epic. I'd love to try one. I haven't even seen like the whale sort of, what are they called? The
tubercles.
Tubercles, that's it. Yeah, it looks epic, and everyone says it's super refined and sharp, which for downwinding to me makes perfect sense. You want it as refined as possible because you're literally up on foil for 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes plus every bit of advantage you want. And so I guess I want to sort of try to give you some advice on, like, for the SUP, I would have thought you'd be using a bigger foil, but maybe it's not the case. On the prone, I'd imagine you'd be able to get away with a small one because you're literally chipping in on a wave, and then once you're up, you're on a smaller, lighter board, which I guess obviously is why you're on the 980 when it's good conditions. And as long as conditions are good downwind, like paddling up, that's the hardest, that's the biggest challenge you're going to face, as you found out your first time around. Paddling up onto the foil with a SUP is freaking hard. And I guess what I've taught in the past is, like, just literally go out at the finish of your run where it's like a little bit onshore and just practice reps there. You don't even have to go out into the surf. You can just go to the an onshore beach and just paddle out a little bit and just work on your paddle ups, paddling up onto the foil. And that's because if you can paddle up onto the foil, you already know you can downwind for miles, 10 miles at a time on a prone board. It's no different on the SUP once you're up, just a little bit more swing weight. So it's just the only hard part, which is also the super hard part on a prone board, is getting going. So it's like work the paddle up onto the foil, and I've always said start with the biggest foil you can get your hands on for your first downwind run, because you're gonna if you come off the foil, a lot of times doing those repetitions to get up it's hard. Like, it's even for me when I come down in like the wrong spot and there's like a bit of backwash, a bit of messiness, I'm taking a couple minutes to get going again, for sure.
Yeah, maybe I can borrow my buddy's 1440.
Yeah, if you've got a friend who's got one, I'd recommend it. Like, people get a bit funny about it, like, oh, but I know I can go, like, I know this one I can pump. It's like, pumping's one thing, but getting going is something completely different. And it's a technique to get going. It's like, I call it like a paddle pump technique. So you got to like paddle and pump. And the reason that foiling for a SUP makes so much sense, even more than prone in my view, more than like a ski and all these guys are trying to learn to foil, the SUP is perfectly suited because you're already standing up and you can literally, like, you can pump it with your feet. Prone, you've seen Dave Kalama with his hand paddles, he's on his knees and he's paddling, and it works, but he's got to go from on his knees or on his stomach up to his feet. So there's a lot of advantages of the SUP, but I totally get why, it's supping's, a bit goofy, but it's, once you're up, it's so
cool.
It's so
well. What do you do with it? Do you throw it? Do you do like the sword thing, like Dave? What do you do with your?
I haven't done it yet, but I just chatted to Dave last week, and I've got myself an inner tube, and I'm gonna cut it and sort of do the sword thing, because once you're up, you don't need it. Like, literally, I usually just hold it in one hand, and you just sort of float downwind. It's the same as prone downwinding. Once you're up, it's just you have this vessel to get going, and once you're going, it's happy days.
Like, if there is a way to get up on my 4.0 in the middle of the ocean, that's all I would do.
Yeah.
The only reason we're going to SUP is because we need to get back up. Yeah. We can't carry a giant wing with us. Like, we got, like, the paddle just seems like the best the best tool at the moment, but who knows? Something that, like
Mm.
I don't want to end up with that little engine thing. That seems a little cheaty, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe end up with one of those things.
Yeah, so actually these guys that foil drive, they've got one for a SUP, and they literally they get themselves going, and then they're up, and
Yeah,
because the motor's so high, like they're just downwinding, which is, for getting people into it, it's epic. But as you said, it's
yeah,
it's a little bit cheaty for sure. They're developing one for prone. That's something they're working on, and they're pretty pumped about it. But I'm like, yeah, that's cool. It's going to get heaps of people into it, I'm sure. But
yeah,
I'm hoping it's like an entry point, and then once
yeah,
they do it, they can realize, okay, if I can teach myself to get going, I know I'm going to be able to glide the whole way down the coast, because there's still that, you don't want to be e-foiling the whole way,
Or maybe you can have it like for an emergency in your backpack or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
A little hydrant to get you going.
Yeah.
I've done a bunch of the, and I want to chat to you about the winging too, because you obviously use that to teach yourself to downwind as well.
Yeah.
So tell me the story. Like, what we're using a prone board to wing.
Well, one of the reasons like I wanted to figure out how to wing was because like I saw all those videos in the very beginning. So the wizard Scotty and I bought like the first generation slingshot wing with like the windows in it, with like everything was inflatable, like the trailing edge and everything was inflated.
Yeah.
And the thing did not work, dude. Like it does work. Like it does theoretically work, but for us, like we could not get this thing to work. But then there was also the fact that we were trying to do it on our prone boards on Oahu, and like the wind's just not strong enough. So I got a bigger board, and I got a F1 wing, 4.2, and then it clicked, and it was like, oh my god, this is so much fun. We were doing it by the airport with Derek Hama taught us, and from there, like we started. Derek's like, let's go do the Hawaii Kai runs, and with Laleo and Todd Bradley them. So we were doing these like long runs from Hawaii Kai, and that's what opened me up to my, like, this is where I live. Like it's right out the doors, Maunalua Bay. So like that's where I saw it. That this is a huge playground that I never thought existed. I can't believe I live here. Like I just moved here like maybe a year into it and found this. I was like, oh my god, I was surfing all the waves, and now I got this downwinding paradise. So that was like the intro was the F1. But shout out to Slingshot, like they got me into it. I met that dude, I think his name is Tony or something, in Hood River once. Dude was super cool. But then there was the F1 that clicked for me. But then eventually I realized I didn't even need the wing, right? Like what do I need the wing for? Because I was like letting it go and just hanging out there, and I was just downwinding.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like doing those big airs. Like I used to snowboard and teach snowboarding, so I really loved how much air you could get and like hang time. But I broke a foil off the bottom of my boards, and then my ankles started giving me drama, and I was like, dude, you're getting old, dude. like maybe you don't need to be doing this so much. And that was also the exact same time when the boys were like, hey, Kahi, get your ass over here. What are you doing winging? Because they started doing their downwinders, and I'm out at mansions like, I'm like, watch this, boys. And they're like, whatever. And they just kept doing laps. I was like, okay. And I joined them, and the rest is history. Like I'm so happy being part of the crew. The Voyager fam is tight. And I think the cool thing is, like, if you're not from here and you want to give it a go, we're super aloha, especially if you're giving us rides. If you're new to the community and you're coming to do these runs, don't just have mom drop you off. Like, if you're too young, have mom drive us. Yeah. We're not above taking rides from your mom or dad, or drive. Like the only dramas we've had is when kids show up, or adults for that matter, and they want to do laps with us, but they're not offering up their car.
Yeah. That's the same thing we have here with Downwind. People that are new, they just rock up. It's like, so what's going on? Like, what do we do? It's like, yeah, you leave your car here, we'll drive up,
Yeah.
come back. You got to give me a lift back up to my car. They're like, oh, is that how it works? Like, yeah, it's like an education thing.
Yeah.
You can't just rock up and expect everyone to do all the heavy lifting.
Exactly. And have cold beers for the boys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
We're gonna give you the guidance and the insight. All we ask is for cold Modelo's.
Yeah. That's too good. So I guess what's the next step for you? Like you've done one long one. Are you going to go from Sandy's next?
Yeah, I think like the next, well, first is I got to start making the Kaiko's run with this thing, and then Kawaihoa, and then Pele's chair. So Sandy's, or even further, right? So Pele's chair, that's a super good run. We go from Pele's chair unassisted to the blowhole. That's a really cool run, and you end up in a blowhole, like it's right where they filmed Pirates of the Caribbean, and all the tourists that are taking pictures and they're freaking out. Like, where did you come from? So that's a really, really cool run. But we want to go past it and just keep going all the way around. So, and then from there, I want to go Maui to Molokai.
That was my next question.
Molokai to Oahu.
Yeah, that's something I'd love to see, like this downwind foil community, like do some of the established races like M2O and like M2M, you know, Maliko runs.
Yeah.
Over on Kauai as well. You know, there's so many. You know how lucky you are. Like you're in downwind paradise, and like you've discovered this new world just recently, and it's like
it's a trip. Like I feel like I see a lot of the drama happening in the world, and it's like, man, am I like, I get kind of like bummed out sometimes, but then you're like, you look at the happiness that you're getting to experience in this new world of foiling, you're like, no big deal. Like let's go have some fun.
Yeah.
So like foiling has been like a godsend, especially at my age. Like I'm 42, and like if this foiling had come in my 20s or 30s, I might not have even done it. I would have just been so into shortboarding or riding Elias still. Like this sport, it gives us like middle-aged or young people like extra legs, you know, like
even the other group, like you said, you got 60-year-olds, and same here, we've got some older dudes like winging and wanting to do the downwinders. Actually, another question I wanted to ask is, what dimensions are your stand-up paddleboard? Like how big is it, or how?
It's 5'11" by 23 by like 4.5 inches thick, and it's 89 liters. So I wanted to get something that was a little more narrow, and but with enough volume for me to be able to stand on it without it just tipping over. Yeah. So we'll see. I haven't even put it in the water. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, like it sounds like that's a good, like mine's 6 foot by 24, about 80 liters. That's what I'm using. So you're right in that same ballpark, which is going to be. I'm stoked. When I saw the Voyagers like the first time, like proning, I'm like, they must only be doing short runs, but I'm so stoked to hear you guys doing these long ones, and you're ticking them off, and you're going to go longer and longer, and learn to stand up and get yourself going without having to chip in, and get yourself going in the deep water too, which is so cool.
You know, another little tidbit of advice that I'm going to try. It's relatively new. Scotty the Wizard's been rocking a front strap just for his front foot on the prone unassisted, and my buddy Jesse just tried it yesterday, and he was like, it's game changer. Like, you got to do this. So there's something to it. Throw a front strap on when you're downwinding. You know, your back foot moves around, but that front foot doesn't necessarily move around that much, and it gives you that additional like pushing forward to get it, because like you get into these situations where your body is making these tiny micro adjustments. You don't even know you're doing it. You know, like when you're in the zone, your body's just acting, and you're riding these bumps, and it knows that you just got to give it this little forward. And I think that strap gives you that additional, and then also just the torque, right? Like you just start yanking the turns even harder.
So harder, can't you? I haven't tried the strap downwinding, because to me, when I start paddling, I sort of like my stance is kind of like, I call it like a split stance. So I'm like this, and then like as I get up and going, I'll sort of widen my stance and get my back foot sort of more over the foil. And and with the foot strap, because I guess I'm starting like that, and it's just been like,
Yeah, I'm not sure you could do it with the sup, but prone.
Okay.
Prone's it's the way to go. Prone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I've dabbled with the straps on and off. I like sort of do like, a couple sessions with straps, then I'm like, I'm over them, and I take them off, and then I put them back on, and it's super.
Yeah.
I guess for the surf foiling, I really enjoy it because it's fun for, kind of just like you're saying, like sort of snow. It feels more like snowboarding. You just sort of hit like a wave and you just go flying off the back, and you can do little ones and sort of land back on the wave too, and it's kind of fun. But yeah, I'll have to try it. The front strap for the prone downwind sort of missions.
Yeah. I got a mate in Byron, or just north of Byron, who's got the Kujira. I should link you up with him.
That'd be sick.
Campbell
6 hours north. Yeah.
Dude. Oh, 6 hours? Oh, okay. It's not just next door. Okay. Yeah.
That is a big island.
They're fun foils, man. They're not that's not a gimmick. Those tubercles. It's a trip. Like we'll see if any other brands start adding them on, but it definitely is doing something. I don't get it. Like the foil shouldn't act that way, and it does, and I'm freaking hooked.
Yeah, no, I'm always open to trying a bunch of stuff, but GoFall's been good to me. And what am I using most of the time? Downwind. Like I guess if I was prone downwinding, I'm using the NL 160, and that's something I don't ever use on my SUP when it's like cranking wind. The smallest foil I've used downwind was the GL 140, and it was actually, it's just a dead whale had just washed up.
Oh,
nearby, and I'm like, I'm gonna go out. I heard it's on this reef. I'm gonna go, this other section. I get to the beach and I start paddling out, and as I'm walking to jump off, my starting point, the guy goes, "Oh, the whale started washing downwind." It's like just, it was like I could see it. It was a couple of 100 meters from where I was starting, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go. Once I get up, I'll be sweet. I'm gonna go up and just go." And I got up and I hit the water. I'm like, "Oh no, I'm on my smaller foil. I'm not even sure I can even paddle this thing up." And I've never had so much motivation to get going. I literally paddle and pump so hard. And I got up and I'm like, I am out of here. And the sun was setting and everything. Everything was like, it was a stupid idea looking back at it. But I got going, and I haven't tried that foil again. Foils.
You got to be careful, man. The sharks like the foils, man. They make that vibration.
Through my head, and I'm like, this is a stupid idea. Yeah, it wasn't the smartest thing I've done. But I figured the sharks were preoccupied with the
they're probably full
floating whale carcass. But yeah, that wasn't my finest moment. But yeah, that was the GL 140. I tried that, and then what I found actually when I go out and I use too small foil, it's just like you're always trying to work it to get up to speed. I've gone back the other way, and I'm like, I guess lazier. But getting going on a bigger foil, I prefer to be maxed out the whole way and just sort of be able to sort of just wash off speed and do turns and having to pump and sort of create my own speed the whole way. So, but on a prone board, you can definitely get away with a smaller foil, which is why I was asking. What you found.
And then there's even risk reward with the big foil too, right? Like where we surf, or where we're downwinding in Kaikos, and even out at Honolulu Bay, and for that matter at Sandy Beach as well, you're mixing ground swell with wind swell. So if you get stuck in a ground swell and you're riding it, those things have so much energy. If you got too big of a foil, you risk breaching. So it's like you gotta know what the ocean's doing. Or when you see those ground swells, you just ride them for a second, you kick out.
Exactly.
I remember doing the run from Kahi Hoa, the long run that I made, and being on a couple ground swells, more or less in my head, what are you doing? Get off of this thing, get off of this thing. But you know how it is, sometimes when you get locked in, you can't get out. And
turning, so you're just like, speed.
Yeah. And you're just like all that weight forward, and you start hearing that water underneath you start making that sound of right before breaching, and then luckily you don't. Like, oh my God, you're just like, oh, thank God. But that's definitely one of the dangers when you're downwinding, is like grabbing a groundie and breaching.
For sure. Yeah, it's I just want to I'm going to bring up some footage, and maybe we can just get you to talk through. Do you have one in particular on the Voyager foilers page that I should open up? Because like that ground swell versus wind swell is such an important thing for when we downwind. You know, like I was in my head, I want to try to find the one where Jack is filming you and you're yelling back. You're like, "Dude, I'm in the zone. Don't bother me. Don't bother me." I'm like,
that was the run. That was
the run. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. I was like, bro,
I'm just scrolling. I'm gonna share screen. So anyone who's listening, just sort of bear with us. But if you're watching, you can we're on the Voyager foilers page. Give him a follow. Epic.
He's been putting up such great content, and like when he has us like do the little stories of the like what we're up to. It's really fun, man. I love what he's doing, and like this community that he's created, and it seems like it's growing around the world, which is so cool.
Yeah, for sure. Like I know, it sort of inspired me to put together like a little downwind how-to sort of online sort of coaching business, and it's it hasn't taken off, but it's growing, and it's one of those. It's that inspiration, It's just this is so cool, and everyone aspires to do something like this. So I mean, let me know which one you think I should have a look at. I'm not sure I have.
Bro, I don't know. Like, yeah, you can look at Scotty. Scotty's right there doing a turn. That's right before Black Point. So that's going to be like a send where we're sending it before. You got to go around that headway, and that's a spooky little section because there's nothing there. So he's obviously on the 980. You can tell by those turns. But you can see ground swells. They're going towards shore, right? And then our other swells. Yeah, you can see all the ground swell.
Yeah, you can. I'm gonna, because for those that are watching, I'm gonna try to pause it. Let's find a spot. Yeah, kind of here. Basically, you can see like these sort of ones going this way, like sort of into shore. Yeah. That'd be the ground swells,
Yeah.
And then the ones that it's almost like just sort of little surface chops. They're almost going like this way, and they're kind of bending and refracting.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Pretty much.
That's what we have. We get to go that way, and then we get to a point where we have to catch some groundswell, or else you'll end up out at sea.
Because that was what I was saying earlier. I think before we're chatting, like the Hawaii Kai run. Let me. What am I going to do here? The Hawaii Kai run. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. Like for when I've done it, the wind really to me felt like when we start, it kind of feels like it's sort of going this direction, which is it is straight along the coast, but it's from when you're starting here, it's basically takes you out to this sort of area. Feels like, and then once you get here, the wind it feels like it sort of straightens up and takes you in a bit more, but it's probably a combination of the wind.
It's more or less when you have a east or northeast or east northeast, like this is the best run. It's unreal. Like it starts going offshore, and then it turns around Diamond Head, and then it starts at Diamond Head because you've got the mountain there. It starts pointing straight offshore again. So at the very end, you need to catch groundswell to get back in.
It's like the wind funnels through here and then funnels kind of around here and here. So it does this bending thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the closer you get to Diamond Head, it's like the more swell there is too. It just, I don't know, I found it just feels like a point break when you're foiling or when on the south.
Yeah, all these mountains are funneling the wind. So it's a northeast trade wind or east trade wind. But when you get to the mountains, it funnels it and shoots it more variable. Like it's not variable, but different than the normal northeast. So like it'll switch to straight north and then it'll switch to east.
It's a cool bit of coastline you guys are living in. One of the runs I've done before on my stand-up is actually starting. It's like the Makapu run, and starting like literally
right there.
It'd suck on a foil because you got to launch from here basically on a stand-up or an outrigger. You just sort of paddle out. But once you're here, like this run is freaking crazy. Like
so we're going from right there where your arrow was.
Oh yeah.
We're going a little lower. There's a little bay right there.
Yeah. I know the spot. There's a fun little surf spot there too.
Yeah, and no, it's terrible. But we launch from right there, and then we go to the blowhole where the number 72 is.
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually we want to be able to go from there all the way to Kaimana.
Yeah, that'd be. Yeah, that's a run. That's a serious run. That's I guess the more you get into this downwind foiling, it's like the more you want to go further and further. And it's
Yeah,
like,
right.
yeah, you guys have plenty of options to go. Actually, I've heard of crew that. Let me get out of here.
Yeah, the North Shore boys are doing long runs.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I've done on a stand up. I've done a fairly long Turtle Bay to like Wailuku, but yeah, you can go all the way to the other sort of.
Turtle Bay to Wailuku. That's an island jump there. Maybe I think you're in Wailua.
Oh, Wailua, yeah, that's a long way, right? But I wonder if you guys. I guess the wind goes really bad around here, doesn't it? I was just wondering if you guys can go further this way.
You hypothetically could, but you're way out at sea. Like you're miles out at sea.
It's a long way, but yeah, that's right. Wailua, yeah, like Turtle Bay to Wailua, but otherwise, I guess you can theoretically you go further, right?
Yeah, you could go to Mokuleia, arguably, which is like right out where the airfield is.
Yeah,
but I haven't even really ventured out there because it's so good right here in my backyard. But it's a testament too, because the boys out there come to town, like Eric Knudsen and Sturman and Aaron. They're coming all the way to town and they're frothing. They're just like freaking out, like this is so good.
Yeah, there's no like. I've got a buddy who lives in Wailua, and when we're there in summer, we're always like, we want to go to South Shore because the wind is so much better there, and like it's kind of we sort of the North Shore wind. It gets good on its day, but the South Shore seems to be better more often. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's. I'm gonna start wrapping up because it's been good chatting, but I know you've got. Yeah, we did. But I want you to leave us with sort of three tips, I guess, for people setting out for their downwind foil voyage.
Yeah. Okay, 3 tips. First, get James Casey's tutorial. And if you can't afford it, go to YouTube and watch my free one. It's a bit of comedy, but within that would be my number 2 rule. Or tip, and that's just make sure you have the right equipment. Like we see so many guys show up with the wrong equipment, or there's no way. Like you're showing up with a dihedral wing, a surf wing, trying to do a downwinder. You're not going to make it. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you can pump 2 or 3 waves. It's not going to happen. So you don't necessarily need a high aspect wing, but mid aspect, high aspect, make sure you have the right equipment, and then your board as well. You can't have a giant board unless you're supping. So just make sure you have the right equipment. That goes for everything, just wing foiling or even regular foiling. Just have the right equipment. Other than that, the third one is downwind foiling. Like I said earlier, is I'd say 25% your physical capabilities, and then 75% your mental ability to stay focused and believe in yourself. So if you believe you can, and if you believe you can't, you can't.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. It's like when you say avoid that rock over there, and every time people, what rock, and they look at it, they're gonna hit it. Whereas when you say okay, we're just gonna go this way where it's open, okay, we'll go to where it's open, and it's sweet. But yeah, if you don't have the belief, you've at least got to work on that. You got to build yourself up a little and say, yeah, I got this. Great tips. It's been great to have you on, Kahi. Nice to meet you too.
I got one more. Dude.
One more.
I think it's more philosophical though, because this is as I get older as well. It's we as foilers need to just really appreciate what we have, and realize we are some really lucky individuals to be doing what we're doing. I feel like we need to start opening this sport up to those less fortunate. So that's kind of what I want to see in the future is figuring out ways to bring in a more diverse crew into the fold of foiling. And then also, you know, like, hey, in life, we all seem to be working so damn hard to be able to surf and foil as much as we can. So don't lose sight on why you do what you do, right? Like, don't work so hard and you don't have time to foil or surf. Like, get in the ocean as much as you can. So yeah, I just want to thank you for letting me be on this, and hopefully the boys don't put me under review for doing this podcast. But I appreciate the opportunity.
No, it's been great to have you, Kahi, and thanks for your time as well. And I'll try to you have to pass on some details to some of the other boys. I'll try to get them on as well. But yeah, great. I guess that last tip, that was probably my favorite. You know, a lot of people I know, you know, they work so hard so they can afford, you know, another board or another foil, but then they can just continue working. They never even use the board or the foil. It's like, don't lose sight of what we're, I guess not what we're here for, but like what we're here to have, you know, the meaning of life. Like, it's like, well, what's the point? But it's like, if you're having fun, then and you're sort of sharing the fun. To me, that's what it's all about. So if you can get out there and share the stoke and, you know, share equipment and get more people into it, epic. Yeah, that's what's all about.
Or give a Voyager a ride back up when they're hitchhiking.
Exactly. Look out for it. Yeah. But thanks again, Kahi. Nice to meet you, and nice to sort of understand what it is you boys are doing over there, because I'm loving following, and when I'm over there next, which who knows when that'll be, but you know, I'll be there as soon as it's easy. And I love to do a run with you guys.
Likewise, dude. I love Australia. I've traveled all over the place. Your country is amazing. I really enjoy it, and I'm a huge Johnny Farnham fan. So let's go.
Heavy. Let's do it.